He was just a little boy with a big heart and only 50 cents in his pocket. He was determined to buy his little sister the best ice cream in the world. But when he walked into the ice cream shop and offered his only coin, the owner did something that would change their lives forever. You won't believe the incredible act of kindness that followed, and the unexpected way this small gesture came back to him years later. In the sun-drenched, bustling streets of a small, quiet town in Pakistan, nestled between the arid plains and the ancient city of Bahawalpur, lived a young boy named Farooq. At 8 years old, he was a small person in a big world, but his heart was boundless, a reservoir of love for his family. He lived with his mother and his little sister, Zara, a 5-year-old with a laugh that sounded like wind chimes and a smile that could melt the most stubborn heart. Their world was contained within the 4 walls of their small, sun-bleached clay home, a place of simple, unadorned beauty. The air inside was always warm, carrying the faint scent of spices from his mother's cooking and the sweet fragrance of jasmine that grew in a pot by the door. Their father, a kind, hard-working man who had been a local carpenter, had passed away a year ago, a sudden illness taking him from their lives as quietly as the setting sun. His absence had left a void that was both emotional and financial. The silence where his booming voice once was, the emptiness at the dinner table, these were the emotional scars. The financial burden was a constant, nagging worry that hung in the air like dust, a fine, invisible film that coated everything. Their mother, a woman of profound resilience, worked tirelessly, her hands calloused and raw from long hours of sewing intricate designs onto colorful fabrics. The whirring sound of her sewing machine was the soundtrack of their lives, a constant reminder of her love and sacrifice. But the money was always scarce, a fragile, unpredictable lifeline that barely kept them afloat. Farooq, in his young, innocent way, felt the weight of this struggle. He understood, without being told, that there were things they couldn't have, things that other children took for granted. He saw the way his mother's shoulders slumped at the end of the day, the way she would gently but firmly say no to their small, hopeful requests. He understood that a trip to the local market was not about wants, but about needs. But he was also fiercely protective of his little sister. She was his hero, his protector, the keeper of her secrets, and the one person who could always make her laugh. Their world was small, but it was filled with love, a love so powerful it felt like a physical presence. They would spend hours on the roof of their home, watching the kites dance in the sky, their small hands clasped together, their laughter echoing in the quiet twilight. One sweltering afternoon, as the heat shimmered off the pavement and the air hung heavy and thick, Zara, with her usual wide-eyed innocence, pointed a small finger at the ice cream shop on the corner. It was a local institution, a small, unassuming shop with a vibrant, hand-painted sign that read Rahim's Ice Cream, and the constant, sweet scent of vanilla and chocolate wafting from its open door. To Zara, it was a place of magic, a doorway to a world of endless, sugary delight. She would press her small nose against the glass, her eyes wide with wonder, and point at the swirling, colorful mounds of ice cream, each one a promise of pure joy. "Ice cream, by John," she said, her voice a small, hopeful whisper. She used the respectful title for an older brother, a word that held a world of affection and trust, a word that was a quiet prayer of her heart. Farooq's heart sank. He knew they didn't have money for ice cream. They barely had money for lunch. He looked at her hopeful face, a face so full of innocent trust, and a wave of profound sadness washed over him. He felt a lump form in his throat, a sharp, physical ache of helplessness. He was her hero, and he was failing her. He felt the weight of his responsibility, the crushing burden of not being able to provide the one small thing that would make her so happy. He thought of his mother, working so hard, her hands a constant blur of motion, her face etched with a quiet, unyielding exhaustion. He knew he couldn't ask her for money. He wouldn't. He had to figure this out himself. He had to find a way to make his sister's dream, no matter how small, come true. He rummaged through his pockets, a desperate search for a forgotten treasure. He found a piece of string, a small, smooth stone, a faded picture of his father, and a single, tarnished coin. He pulled it out, and his heart leaped. It was 50 paisa, a single, humble coin, a fraction of a rupee. His heart sank again. He knew it wasn't enough. The smallest ice cream cone cost 2 rupees. He had only 50 paisa. He looked at the coin in his hand, a small, insignificant thing, a symbol of his poverty, and he looked at his sister's hopeful eyes, eyes that held a boundless, unwavering faith in him. He couldn't disappoint her. He wouldn't. He had to try. He had to make a bargain with destiny. He took her small hand in his, a hand that was so small and so trusting, and walked with a determined stride toward the ice cream shop. The bell on the door jingled as they entered, a sound that, to Farooq, felt like a judgment, a harbinger of the disappointment that was to come. The air inside was cool and fragrant, a welcome respite from the heat outside, filled with the sweet, intoxicating scent of vanilla, chocolate, and the exotic flavors of pistachio and mango. The shop was owned by a kind, elderly man named Mr. Rahim, a man with a gentle face and a constant, knowing smile. He had known Farouk's family for years, a silent, benevolent presence in their lives. He had seen Farouk's father, a hard-working, honest man, and he had seen the grief and struggle that had followed his passing. He had seen it all, and he had seen it with a quiet, profound compassion. Farouk walked up to the counter, his heart pounding in his chest like a small, terrified drum. He stood on his tiptoes to see over the counter, his small hand holding the coin out to Mr. Rahim. The tarnished metal felt cold and heavy in his palm, a symbol of his inadequacy. "Uncle," he said, his voice a small, hopeful whisper, "I have only 50 paisa. Can I please have an ice cream for my sister?" He held the coin out, a small, defiant offering, a plea for a kindness he knew he didn't deserve. Mr. Rahim, a man who had seen 1,000 faces and 1,000 stories, looked at the small boy, his eyes filled with a profound, unspoken dignity. He looked at the tarnished coin in his hand, a symbol of a boundless love and a crushing poverty. He looked at the small girl standing beside him, her eyes wide with a hopeful, innocent trust. He didn't laugh. He didn't mock him. He didn't dismiss him. He simply smiled, a kind, gentle smile that reached his eyes, a smile that seemed to say, "I see you. I see your love. I see your struggle." He slowly, deliberately took the coin from Farouk's hand. He held it for a moment, a symbol of a love so profound it was almost tangible. He looked at the boy's face, a face etched with hope and fear, and 1,000 memories of his own youth came flooding back. He remembered a time when he had nothing, a time when a small kindness from a stranger had changed his life forever. He knew what this moment meant. This was not about a transaction, this was about a boy's dignity. This was about a brother's love. Then, with a quiet, decisive gesture, he reached into his own pocket, pulled out a handful of coins, and added them to Farouk's. He gently pushed the combined coins back into Farouk's hand. "This is not for you, my son," he said, his voice a low, melodic hum, a sound as sweet as the ice cream itself. "This is for your sister. A king's ransom, for a queen. You pay for her with what you have, and I will pay for her with what I have. A brother's love is worth more than all the money in the world." Farouk's eyes welled up with tears. He looked at the handful of coins in his hand, a fortune he had never seen before. He looked at Mr. Rahim, his heart filled with a profound, unutterable gratitude, a sense of relief so immense it felt like a physical weight had been lifted from his shoulders. He had been seen. His love for his sister had been seen. His dignity had been seen. He had been a small, insignificant boy with 50 paisa, and a kind, elderly man had just made him feel like the richest boy in the world. He looked at his sister, and her face, once filled with a hopeful innocence, was now filled with a radiant, joyous smile. He bought her a large, 2-scoop ice cream cone, a glorious mountain of chocolate and vanilla, and he watched her eat it with a profound, quiet joy. He had done it. He had provided for her. He had been her hero. And in that moment, he understood that true wealth was not measured in coins, but in the kindness you showed to others. Years passed. The small, quiet town grew and changed. The dusty streets were paved, the small shops were replaced by bigger ones, and the quiet rhythm of life was replaced by a more frantic, hurried pace. Farouk and Zara grew up. Farouk, fueled by the memory of that day, the memory of Mr. Rahim's kindness, worked tirelessly. The memory of that moment became the bedrock of his life, a constant reminder of the power of compassion. He studied hard, poring over his books by the light of a single kerosene lamp, his mind a sponge, absorbing everything. He worked hard, taking on odd jobs, delivering newspapers, helping at the local market, tutoring younger students, to help his mother and to save for his future. He never, ever forgot the lesson he had learned. He learned that the true currency of life was not money, but kindness. He learned that the greatest act of wealth was not to acquire, but to give. He went to college on a scholarship, his grades a testament to his relentless work ethic. He worked odd jobs to support himself, and he graduated with a degree in business, a brilliant, determined young man with a clear vision of his future. He had a dream of building a business that was not just about profit, but about people. He wanted to be the kind of person Mr. Rahim was, a person who saw the human dignity in every person, no matter their station in life. He started a small, local food business, a business that was not about money, but about community. He made it his mission to hire people from his neighborhood, people who were struggling, people who had a story. He gave them a chance to build a new life, a chance to be seen. He paid them a living wage, he treated them with respect, and he created a work environment that was not about hierarchy, but about family. His business flourished, not just because his food was good, but because his heart was in it. People were drawn to the quiet kindness that radiated from his business. He was a beacon of hope in a city that was becoming more and more cynical. His reputation for fairness and generosity spread like wildfire, and his business, once a small, humble stall, became a thriving, bustling enterprise. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, the passage of time had not been as kind to Mr. Rahim. His ice cream shop, once a local institution, had closed years ago, a victim of the changing times and the rise of larger, more impersonal corporations. He had no one to take care of him, no one to help him. His children had moved to distant cities, their lives too busy to care for an old man with a fading memory. He was old, and he was sick. He was alone, and he was dying. His days were a quiet, monotonous cycle of loneliness and despair. He had lived a life of kindness, but in his final years, he was paying the price for his solitude. He had nothing left but his memories, memories of a life filled with small, quiet acts of compassion. He had heard about Farouk, the boy who had built a successful business from nothing, the boy who had never forgotten his roots. He came to him with a sense of quiet hope, a hope that the boy he had helped years ago would remember him. He knew it was a long shot, a desperate plea from a dying man. But he had to try. One sweltering afternoon, years after that fateful day, a car pulled up to his now bustling business. It was a small, dusty car, and a man, old and frail, got out. He was a ghost of his former self. His hair was white, his hands were gnarled with age, and his shoulders were stooped with the weight of years. He was Mr. Rahim. He was old, and he was sick. He was alone, and he was dying. He had heard about Farouk, the boy who had built a successful business from nothing, the boy who had never forgotten his roots. He came to him with a sense of quiet hope, a hope that the boy he had helped years ago would remember him. Farouk, now a man, a successful business owner, saw him and his heart stopped. He was in his office, looking at spreadsheets and financial reports, but in that moment, all of that melted away. He saw the frail, old man, and he saw the kind, gentle man who had once made him feel like the richest boy in the world. He ran to him, his eyes welling up with tears. He hugged him, a gesture of profound, unutterable gratitude, a physical manifestation of a debt that could never be repaid. "Uncle," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "I am so glad to see you. Please come inside. Please come inside and rest." Mr. Rahim, frail and old, looked at him with a sense of profound relief, a sense of quiet dignity that had never left him. "Farouk," he said, his voice a raspy whisper. "I have nowhere else to go. I am alone. I am sick. I have nothing." Farouk smiled, a genuine, unpracticed smile that reached his eyes. "You are not alone, uncle. You are not sick. You are family. You gave me a lesson I will never, ever forget. You taught me the true currency of life. You taught me that kindness is the only thing that matters. You gave me back my dignity. You gave me back my hope. You gave me a reason to fight. This business, this life I have built, it is all because of you. I owe you everything." Farouk took him in, not as a charity case, but as a family member. He gave him a room in his own home, a room with a view of the garden, a room that was clean and comfortable. He hired a nurse to take care of him, he made sure he had the best doctors. He treated him with a profound, unwavering respect, a respect that was born of a debt that could never be repaid. He would sit with him for hours, listening to his stories, sharing his own. Mr. Rahim, once a lonely, sick old man, was now a king in a new kingdom, a kingdom of love and gratitude. He had found a family in a place he had never expected to find one. He had found a son in a boy he had once helped with a single, humble coin. He had found a home in a place that had once been a business. The story of the boy and the ice cream owner became a legend in the town. It was a story that was told and retold, a story that reminded people that a single act of kindness can change a person's life forever, and that the greatest investment you can ever make is in the human heart. It was a story that taught people that a single, humble coin, when given with love, could be worth more than all the gold in the world. Mr. Rahim lived for another 3 years, his final years filled with a quiet, profound peace. He was surrounded by love, by the quiet, unwavering gratitude of a family he had once helped. He was no longer alone. He was no longer sick. He was home. He would often sit with Farouk and Zara, his eyes twinkling as he told them stories of his youth, stories of a life filled with both hardship and joy. He had found his final chapter, a chapter filled with a peace he had never known. He passed away quietly in his sleep, a gentle smile on his face, his final breath a silent thank you to the boy who had never forgotten him. The legacy of Farouk's business, and the story of his kindness, extended far beyond the borders of their small town. He became a global ambassador for ethical business, speaking at conferences and universities around the world. His company's model of social responsibility was emulated by businesses of all sizes, and he was hailed as a visionary. But despite his fame and fortune, he never lost his humility. He remained a quiet, thoughtful man who saw the world not as a series of problems to be solved, but as a series of opportunities for kindness. He was a business owner, a philanthropist, a hero to his sister, and a son to a man who had once been a stranger. He was a living testament to the power of kindness, and a reminder that some things are far more valuable than money. This story is a powerful reminder that true wealth isn't measured in money, but in the kindness you show to others. It's a reminder that a single act of compassion can create a ripple effect that will change a person's life forever. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to be reminded of the power of kindness. Like and subscribe for more stories that will change your perspective and remind you that sometimes, the most valuable things in life are the ones that are not for sale.